look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
You're listening to the Ballroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences. Welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen podcast with your hosts Joe Mandel, Steven Zim Zimmerman, and Chris Gonzalez. We're bringing you the White Sox coverage you need from the perspective of true Southsiders. Grab your Comiskey dog with an ice cold beer and meet us in section 155. Everyone get on your feet for your 2021 South Burbs Hitmen.
That ball hit deep. Way back. You can put it on the board. Yes. Jimenez in the air. Left field. He's your hero tonight. Thanks, Cubs.
Over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges throws. Out! And the White Sox have won the World Series.
Alexei! Yes! 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 History! A perfect game by Mark Burley, and what an unbelievable play by Dwayne White.
First pitch starts now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen podcast. I'm your host, Joe Mandel, and I'm joined with my White Sox brother-in-arms. I'm talking about Chris Gonzalez and Vinnie Parisi. Before I get to these gentlemen, I just want to take a moment to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day and a huge shout-out to all the men and women of the U.S. military and their families, and, of course, all of our fallen heroes. Happy Memorial Day to you guys, and we greatly appreciate the sacrifice that you all make on a daily basis. And Chris and Gonzo, before we get talking White Sox, anything you want to say about Memorial Day? Gonzo, I'll let you lead it off.
Yeah, like you said it perfectly, Joe. And for everyone listening, this is a day, and just in general, that we're never going to forget. You know, everything that's happened in the past, and we're going to be behind our brothers and sisters for the remaining days of our future. And just really, as far as the White Sox go, a great day for everyone watching to start off the holiday here and the day of remembrance for everyone involved for today.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it, Chris. Vinny, happy Memorial Day, brother. Any thoughts about today?
Absolutely. First of all, happy Memorial Day. All the men and women in uniform who fight for our country, protect our rights, allow us to sit at home and watch baseball and feel free to do it. And, that's all because of them. So for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, we pray, we send our thoughts to their families, and, we love all of them.
Amen, man. And, it gives you a lot to think about inside your heart and as a country as a whole, regardless of how you feel politically. The men and women of all the military services of the United States of America are just truly amazing, as well as the families that a lot of people forget about. But we thank you from the South Burbs Hitmen crew and, of course, everyone here at the Ballroom Network. So with that said, gents, let's talk White Sox baseball. This team is red hot right now. It's smoking hot, as a matter of fact. They took 2 out of 3 from the first place Cardinals. And then we swept the Baltimore Orioles, and now the game 1 of this doubleheader, we took it from the Cleveland Indians, looking to take number 2. Vinny, what were your takeaways from this hot streak of this Sox team, and can they keep it going?
Yeah, since our last show, they took it pretty good to a first-place team, and then they took it even better to a last-place team, which is kind of what you need to see from, the elite teams in the league. If you're the White Sox, you want to go slightly above 500 against those elite teams, maybe even a little better. And then you just got to destroy the teams that are in the bottom of the standings. That's how baseball works. Every team loses 60 and every team wins 60. It's what you do with the other 42 that get you in between being a last place team and a first place team. And to me, those other 42 are the games against the bad teams where you kind of should take care of your business. And that's what they did against the Orioles. And seeing what they did against the Cardinals was nice too.
No doubt about it. Gonzo, takeaways from the last 5-game winning streak, and how are you feeling about this club right now?
Well, yeah, going into our show last week, it was pretty tough. Our vibes coming off that Yankee series with such a key series, and I just love how the boys responded versus another first place contender team in the NL. Beating them, winning that series, and then taking that momentum, and they did better than our expectations. We won at least 3 games, and they swept the Baltimore Orioles in that series, and continue to bring that vibes versus series in Cleveland to begin the week. And it's a key series this week early on versus Cleveland, and they're 4 games behind now, or 4.5, I think, after the win. Definitely, have after game 2 of the doubleheader, 2 more games to go with them, and then on to Detroit for another 4-game series versus them. Any matchups and series in the division are important, and they're going to help down the road. So these are important series to keep on winning as we go on. And you just know that Cleveland's going to probably be there for the run. I'm sure Kansas City is going to continue to be pesky, and Minnesota, as much as we want to count them out, their past 10 games, they're the best in the division with 7-3 before entering today's game for the Sox in the first game of the doubleheader. So they're still pesky too, and they're still fighting. So we really hate to see them try to catch back up to us. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We've been talking about this Twins team and how they could get hot at any second because they have a lot of talent. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm overly worried at the moment, but we do have to be concerned because they could turn it on and do what they just did, go win 7 out of 10, and the Sox just got to keep pace, and they've been doing that. We just got to keep doing what we're doing to this point. Gentlemen, I want to take a step back to the St. Louis series and talk a little bit about foreign substances in baseball because it's been a hot topic the last week of the season. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Gonzo, as someone who's an umpire, obviously for lower levels, for youth games, but I'm curious your takeaway on foreign substances and kind of what's going on, especially with the ejection last week.
Yeah, so going back to that game, when Joe West made that ejection. You saw how Twitter reacted, trying to call him out, making it about him. But you really know what that crew is focused on. And to be honest, after that game, when you saw Mike Schelt with the press conference, before I got notification of it, and I thought it was just going to be, something along the lines of what we saw from, Minnesota's manager and the Kansas City manager, just being outlandish in a press conference. But then when I took the time to actually listen to him for the 10 minutes of that press conference, I agreed with almost everything he said. And he really brought up an important point, questioning the game at the moment and how they're handling foreign substances, because it hasn't been, monitored and enforced by officiating in the MLB. I don't know why they're not getting into it, because in my opinion, the game is already being questioned with previous cheating scandals. And when the pitcher does have an advantage, especially in this modern era when the strikeouts are so high and the batting average is so low, clearly I think I read an article that was about Trevor Bauer with this article, and he said he thinks that 70% of pitchers are taking advantage of a substance, whether it's pine tar or whatever. But when you start to, I know, I saw another little link on Twitter about Gio Gallegos, the pitcher that got ejected from that game with the Cardinals, but his RPMs were significantly down on the spin of the baseball after he removed the cap. And it's a small sample size, but if I know it's a small sample size, but if the analytics show that big of a difference in the spin rate, it's only going to show the effectiveness with the spin rate of the ball going down, how effective that is for the batter and how that should advantage the batter, where it's vice versa right now for, advantage for the pitcher. So it's quite the difference. And I really think that this should be started to be more enforced in the league. I really hope it does, because it was such a bad image, after that ejection. And I think Joe West is onto something here. And I know in the past, he tries to make it about himself, but this is a situation where I think MLB needs to do something right here and going forward, keep onto it, because they need to change the negative impact and negative image of baseball at the moment as well.
No doubt about it, man. We either got a great comment in the chat about this from Guess With Me. I say let it fly. It'll make baseball more interesting. It's an interesting take. I know a lot of people feel that way. Vinny, what are your thoughts about foreign substances when it comes to like caps and brims and all that?
I'm indifferent. If they want to get rid of it, get rid of it. If they like it, if they want guys to be able to have incredible spin rates, go for it. To me, whatever they decide, I'll be cool with. My issue was why Joe West decided to pick on just that one particular pitcher. Like the next day, Hendricks came out and he had white stuff all over his hat. And I don't know how often you guys ever catch the Cubs, but like Craig Kimbrell always has stuff and Lucas Giolito's always going like this. So, I mean, it just felt weird. Like he was picking it out on, a week he was being talked about a lot in general. And to me, it's like, why now? Like, Anthony Rizzo was on Cap and Company, and this isn't a Cubs show, obviously, but the conversation, no matter who it's from, it's baseball. And
exactly.
Rizzo was on the radio the other day, and he's talking about baseball's sticky situation. And, I think it was Mike Schill who said the dirt or the whatever term he used about baseball, like having like a problem, like an unwritten problem or something. And it was like, well, their dirty little secret. That's what he called it. And, guys have been doing this for years. They got the rosin bag behind the bag, and sometimes that stuff just could get on your hat too, and you go like this. I mean, I know guys are using sunscreen and stuff like that to help get extra spin rates too. Anybody who thinks that they're not is just naive. All you got to do is look at a couple of these guys, hats. I know a couple of them keep it on their neck. I've seen, the side of the rim of their hat. To me, if they're licking their hand, it's nothing too foreign. Otherwise, you're probably not licking it. But a lot of guys lick their hands and then touch their hat. To me, that probably is something from the rosin bag or something. So, like I said, I'm indifferent either way. I just don't get why that time and that place was the time to do it.
Yeah, amen. I'm with you, Vinny. I kind of feel similarly. Like, it's not really changing the game all that much right now because everyone's basically doing it. So to me, it just seems like a moot point because it just seems like they're nitpicky for no reason, especially Joe West. For a game the day before that was all about him and celebrating him, he literally tried to make the next day all about him too. It's like he wanted the same attention 2 days in a row. But I think, as great as Joe West has been over his career, and he's had some crazy calls too, I think it's probably time for Joe to hang him up. So
there is something to be said too about there are people whose counter argument towards getting rid of it. Like I said, I'm indifferent either way, but hitters get to use it.
Sure.
It's an even playing field as far as that's concerned. If you took it away from the hitters, it would be probably somewhat noticeable too. Now, to me, there's also a little bit of safety behind it with the hitters as well, because chances are if you're using pine tar on your bat, you're less likely to throw it in your swing. But either way, I think either make a decision or leave it alone. Pick one.
Pick one. I stand by that, Vinny. It's been quite the conversation the last week in baseball, and I think we all agree that we just want to have consistency. I think that's what us baseball fans crave, and as long as they're consistent with how they handle it, I don't have a problem with it personally. So we'll see what happens in Major League Baseball. Umpiring it's been a crazy year for umpiring, and I think it's going to continue to be crazy. But anyway, guys. We're just getting started with the show. We're probably going to do a slightly shorter show today for Memorial Day. That way, we can all get back to enjoying this day off and then getting back to it full show next week. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, previewing our guest next week. But right now, guys, Tony La Russa had a pretty good week. I don't have all that much to complain with Tony. So with that said, we're going to go into a segment where we talk about his decision-making and our thoughts on what TLR had to do this week. It's a segment we like to call La Russa's Locker. Can we talk for a second, guys, about how I feel like Tony La Russa is starting to finally get this team going where it needs to go? I don't have a lot of complaints with what Tony's been doing lately because I feel like he's finally getting in the gel. Maybe he got the cobwebs off the first, month and a half of the season. And here we are. This team is sitting in first place. They're on cruise control. I hate to use that term because I feel like I just jinxed it, but I like what Tony's doing so far, guys. And personally, this last week, I think is his best week managing this team so far. Gonzo, talk to me a little bit about some of your nitpicks from this week or things that you thought were great with Tony, because he is on the upswing. I'm starting to get on the La Russa bus a little bit. How about you?
I mean, I've always been even since the hiring of him, I've been content with him. They hired him for the championship experience, and if they did that in doing so, then I'm all up on the bus for him. What I seen on Sox Twitter with the negativity with Tony La Russa is, they're being nitpicky with him in certain situations early on in the season, how he handles it, which I just don't understand, because you want him to be testing certain roles of players early on, then later down the road where it affects key games of the season that can impact the season and where the team ends up. Kind of similarly to how Ricky was at the end of last season, where he was testing things the last week of the season and end up ruining us winning the division, and that actually impacts the postseason seeding. So it's a certain situation where you expect him to be doing that now, so that when it comes to this season, later in the season, he's going to be making the decisions based on what he's seen early on and up to that point in the season. And hopefully we don't see him doing this like what Ricky did later in the season, but then we would really be on him if that happens. But for the most part at the moment, they've been up, leading the MLB for the most part in wins, up there in winning percentage. So the fact that they're winning and he's, seeing the mistakes the team, and the details that the team is making and trying to, benefit his team and learning, by the errors, learning from your mistakes. That's just, important at the moment. And as far as this week goes, the only thing I saw really early on in the week was there was a challenge at third from Vaughn. And ordinarily, I just thought, Vaughn was out when I saw it, with, on the TV cam and by the eye. But for the fact that Tony challenged it right away and he ended up being safe, that was a key decision by him and putting, Vaughn, I think there was one out at that moment instead of two outs with no one on. But it was a key. And then Vaughn scores on that. So it's just a huge moment. And you guys can actually help me out on today with putting Abreu in motion and how that benefited the game. But just a really good week overall for Tony.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I think Tony had his best week, like I said. And in today's afternoon game, the early game of this doubleheader, Adam Eaton hit a 2-run shot towards the tail end of the game to pad the lead a little bit. And I don't know if you saw, but he went into the dugout and he was having a good old laugh with Uncle Tony. And I don't know what they were saying, but whatever it was, it seemed like they had a good camaraderie going and all the guys were kind of all on board. So I feel like Tony's starting to come back to favor in that clubhouse. They're starting to gel. Vinny, I got to ask you this because this is something that has been on my mind the last couple of days that I wanted to ask you. Liam Hendricks. I'm going with the wrong team, wrong side of town. Liam Hendricks being used heavily, 3 saves in the last 2 days. He's getting more use. He's getting his arm back to where it should be, and he's looked absolutely dominant. Is a stable amount of use from Tony La Russa going to help get Hendricks back in a rhythm?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, La Russa probably had his best week of the season. I really don't have much to say other than positive things since the Yankee series. And one of the positive things is his usage of Liam Hendriks. They paid that guy a lot of money to be a closer, not a long relief guy, not a setup man, a closer. That's a mindset. There are about 15 to 20 guys in the league who can do it on a consistent basis well. And when Liam Hendriks was going in Oakland, they were almost riding him into the ground. I'm not saying ride him into the ground and make him pitch 7 times a week, but, use the guy. He'll perform better if you do. So I'm all for using Hendriks in the situations that he's used him so far. He wasn't needed in today's first game. We don't know what'll happen if today's game recalls for a save situation. I'm assuming that the hope is the Sox can put together enough runs to not need that to be the case. But, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Hendriks going forward, but I'm all for using him.
Amen, man. So this is looks like it's gonna be a close game right now. At least right now, this game is 1-1 in the bottom of the third. In the first game, they used Aaron Bummer in the save situation, and he was able to get out of it with only giving up 1 run. So I would imagine if they need Hendriks, they might use him tonight if it's a close game. Another thing I wanted to highlight, I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm sure it'll come back to me in a moment, but I just wanted to mention that Liam Hendriks, his slider lately, guys, and I know this is a Tone of the Rooster segment, but I just want to talk about how filthy his slider has been. I know they call him the South Slider for a reason, but Gonzo, that movement you've seen out of him lately, it feels like it's almost like an unhittable pitch.
Yeah, and I know Vinny would probably enjoy the videos that the Pitching Ninja has put out with our bullpen. But just really when he was struggling early on in the year, or at least having the numbers that were above average for him, you can tell that he was just getting by with his fastball and that his off speed really wasn't there. So the fact that his knuckle curve and slider is starting to make an impact in his pitching arsenal, he's getting more confident with the feel of his pitches, and it's just going to make him more dangerous. And the reason why he's the best closer in the league, and why we gave him the big contract to begin with. And ultimately, that's the difference between letting Colomé go and bringing a better arm than, because probably Bummer would be the candidate to be our closer if we didn't make that signing for Hendriks. So the fact that we have such a legitimate closer in the game is just going to help us down the road in the postseason. But the guy that just gives us key saves and big moments, in the season as well. So like you said, Joe, he's got some great stuff, and the fact that he's getting it now than later is better for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And little score update, guys. Jose Ramirez just hit a 2-run blast in the bottom of the third. So now we're looking at 3-1. The Sox are trailing. Gonna have to get some runs, but we knew with the rookie coming in for the spot start, and we had a feeling it might be something like this, but we'll wait and see how Lambert can get out of it. But right now, Lambert's stat line, he's got 2 1/3. He's given up 5 hits, 3 earned runs, and 3 strikeouts. So I can't imagine Lambert's probably going to last too long in this game. I wouldn't expect him to, if he gets out of the third, I wouldn't expect him to come back. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's probably going to be a bullpen game. Vinny, thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, his slider is extra effective because of what he's doing with his fastball too. He's able to get that fastball up in the high 90s, and that really helps. So once you're combining a fastball in the high 90s with, the slider that dances in the zone like it does, it makes it very hard to hit.
Absolutely, no doubt. And Gonzo, I know you wanted to add something quickly about Lambert. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, like what you were going off with, Joe, we're kind of expecting to get, just try to get the most out of a rookie in a situation where calls for him to be recalled in a double header. But when you're a rookie facing the best bat in their lineup, it's probably a situation you kind of want to pitch around him a little bit, try to get him to swing at stuff out of the zone. But then he's such a key, batter in that lineup and in the league in general for third baseman that you give him something to crank and he's just going to nail it, and a dangerous hitter. And he's the bat in the lineup you don't want to beat you. So as a rookie, it's a rookie mistake, but I wouldn't give it, put it against him at all too much. I mean, we're not expecting too much out of him, really.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting a lot today either. I was just bad timing. I didn't even mention at the top of the show, Michael Kopech got put on the 10-day IL for that hamstring injury. I know he was on the bereavement list before this. There's been a lot of conversation this week, guys. And before we move on, I want to ask, because I personally think that they put him on the IL because the hamstring is a little bothersome, but maybe they were worried a little bit about his innings count. Vinny, what's your thoughts there? Are they doing this simply for the hamstring, or do you think there's other motives behind this 10-day stop?
Well, going on bereavement, praying for him and his family, I hope
Absolutely, 100%.
all that kind of stuff. And it allowed them to kind of maybe, and I'm not saying that they used bereavement as an excuse. Maybe it certainly was an excuse. Something happened, but
sure.
Almost as like a way to use a couple extra days to figure out what to do based on his status. And I'm assuming that while he was gone, I heard he had to drive to Texas to avoid any kind of issues, which that had to be fun. But I definitely think that it helped do the retroactive thing too. So it's retroactive to the 28th, meaning, it was something that was announced on the 30th. It's technically the 8-day DL if you think about it. So that'll definitely help. They miss him today. He certainly would have been starting this game. I'm kind of on board with what you said about it being like a save some innings kind of deal, because they need this guy. I'm all in on Kopech. I'd add him to the rotation for the playoffs or use him as a long reliever. But the playoffs are pretty much what they should have in mind when it comes to his innings. So, I hope he's okay. I hope the hamstring is all good and it's just precautionary.
Yeah, amen, man. All us White Sox fans are praying for Michael Kopech because he's just full beast mode this year so far. Gonzo, before we move on to the Adam Dud of the week, Michael Kopech, thoughts on his whole situation on the IL?
Yeah, I just think it's a situation that something did come up to put him on the behaviorment. Otherwise, it's just bad PR, in my opinion, to do so, to make it conflicting. Because honestly, he's such a key role player in our bullpen that I would just put him on a DL and I'll give him as much time as he needs to get that issue, solved. So because we're going to need him eventually, throughout the whole rest of this season.
And Gonzo, real quick, just to clarify, I'm not saying that the bereavement list is the part that that is getting them extra innings or extra time off. I'm talking about this IL stint that they announced. What was it? I think was it today or yesterday?
It was yesterday.
They announced yesterday that he's going to be on the 10-day IL, but as Vinny said, it was retroactive, so it's actually 8 days. I'm just wondering if that 8-day IL stint is simply for that hamstring, or if it's actually because of they want to save some innings for him.
Well, I was just saying in general. I didn't say anything regarding to what you said, Joe. I'm just saying in general.
Got it.
Put him on the deal, allow him to heal. I don't care how many days it takes because we're gonna need him in the long run. And to what Vinny said, I'd just keep him in the bullpen when it comes. We don't really know exactly what the pitching staff's going to look like come the end of the season to really make this far out of a prediction. But if the time comes and it's similar to right now, I would just keep him in the bullpen for our high leverage situations because we already.
Oh yeah.
At the moment, if the postseason started now, I'm pretty confident in Lynn, Rodon, and
Giolito's turning it on.
And Giolito. Yeah. Those three would be solid, and I think you could get some big innings out of Cease right now. But for the situation, Keuchel kind of worries me a little bit, but he has that postseason experience on his track record that you're just hoping pays off. But again, when we get there, we'll know exactly what we got at the moment.
Yeah, and the thing with Keuchel is he's actually getting run support right now, which is amazing. You never really see that. Carlos isn't, but he's still getting wins here and there. If Dallas Keuchel is going to struggle at all, I'm happy he's doing it now. Hopefully he can hammer. I don't even want to say he's super struggling right now. He's just not as dominant as we're used to seeing him. So hopefully he can figure that out, and then this team can be firing on all cylinders, because I've really liked what I've seen out of Dylan Cease as well. He's starting to get great command that his pitches are doing what we want them to do. Credit to Ethan Katz with this whole staff right now. It's just really exciting every day. You see whoever's on the bump for these guys. I feel like we have a chance to win every single day, and lately it's becoming the norm. And I want to get used to it, guys. I really do. Every day of the week, I want a White Sox win. So let's see if they can come back in this one. Right now, down 3-1 to the Indians in the bottom of the third. Let's see what we got. I'm trying to see who's on base right now. I just have the stat cast in front of me, but we got 2 outs. Hopefully Lambert can work out of it, but we'll keep watching and see what happens there. But gentlemen, let's move on in the show. We're going to talk about things that we thought weren't great this week, guys that didn't come up to par, they didn't perform the way we thought they would. It's a segment we like to call the Adam Dud of the week.
You suck.
You suck.
Stupid. Lousy. No excuse.
What a dud. What a total dud.
Yes, total duds of the week. And before we talk about our duds, Lambert did get out of the inning. 3-1 still, guys. End of the third, moving on to the fourth. Hey, the rookie got out of it, so that's a beautiful thing. But let's talk about some guys didn't come up to snuff this week. Vinny, who are your nominees for the dud of the week? And what are you feeling about? Who are your duds? I'll just let you. Who are your duds?
Well, going into show prep, I was leaning towards Aaron Bummer because I know that man has the stuff. And I'm not even slightly worried about the long term. I'm really not. A lot of people are. Dude's awesome. Once they start really solidifying that bullpen and he figures out that devastating sinker that he has, I'm not worried about him even a little bit, but it is infuriating to watch him right now. And then today came out, got the job done. He gave up 1 run, as you mentioned. It was the guy who started on second. Most teams give up that run. So, and I guess outside of him, because he kind of redeemed himself today for now, is Tim Anderson. That's another guy who it's basically your expectations are so high that it's almost like, well, we know he's going to come back, but when? It wasn't last week. Other guys are carrying the load, so hopefully that they can get TA going at the top of the lineup because we need him flipping his bat and hitting home runs because it's been a minute since he's hit a home run.
That's right. We need TA, and I'm just going to orchestrate my TA bat flip bobblehead right now. Hopefully we're seeing more of this here in the future. I'm with you. I'm with you for the nomination for Tim Anderson there. And Bummer, I agree. I felt like he kind of redeemed himself. He got that big double play in that game. So it's huge to see him coming back around. Gonzo, I'm going to go next because I wanted to highlight Yermin Mercedes. I don't know what's going on, but he's 2 for 24 this week. He's batting a measly 0.83. He's only got, 4 RBIs still up there on the team, but scored 3 runs. He only had 1 home run, and he's got 5 strikeouts. Yermin's just not having good at bats, at least from what I'm observing. I feel like he's swinging at pitches that he shouldn't be swinging at. I don't know if they're just watching more film on him or if Yermin's just feeling a little looser with the bat, but I feel like he's got to watch some film and get some better at bats. Vinny, am I imagining things, or is Yermin just having some bad at bats lately?
It makes you wonder when you look back to get the stats and you think about what game it first started, and you go all the way back to a series against the Minnesota Twins where his coach wasn't a fan of a specific move he made.
That's true.
And from that moment forward, he kind of went in a little bit of a slump. Yeah, he had a big game a couple days ago. So I don't think it's going to necessarily last. He knows how to make contact and do what he's got to do to get out of these things. I do think today's game was a little impressive for me as well, just because no matter what Tony said about him, he clearly has faith in him, because we mentioned that move where he had Abreu go on a 3-2 count with only 1 out. Most of the time they only do that when there's 2 outs. Mm-hmm. He knows that when there's 2 strikes, there's a good chance Yermin is either going to walk or put the bat on the ball. And as long as it's not like a fly out, even if it is a fly out, Abreu will have plenty of time to get back to first and tag up. So, unless it's a super unlucky, line drive, outplay, then that's where they would run into an issue. But for the most part, he's been not the Yermin of the first couple weeks early, but like we said, water levels out. He's not as good as he was in the first couple weeks of the season, and he's not as bad as he's been for the last 2 weeks. So I think he'll pull out of it soon, but it'd be nice to see coming from that 5-hole.
Yeah, it certainly would. And, he's still going to have good at bats. I mean, Yermin is roughly a career 300 hitter in the minors. I know it's not the minor leagues, but Yermin does make good contact. He has good at bats. I just think he's had a bad week and a half, and he had, like you said, he had one good game. He's going to come back. For this week, he's my Adam dud. Chris Gonzalez, who's your dud of the week?
Those were all good mentions that you guys had, and with Yermin, I mean, he's bound to regress to the mean eventually, and looks like that's happening now. But my dud of the week is, I'm going to go back to our loss last game of the St. Louis series, because that's a situation where you could sweep St. Louis. My dud of the week is Jose Ruiz. In a high leverage situation, you need to take advantage of the moment, because that's where you're going to get paid if you can get that roll with Tony, and you just drop the ball in that situation. Granted, the offense didn't give you support to make that situation a big of a difference, but still take advantage of it, and he didn't. Otherwise, I mean, he's been pretty good, when we need him in long relief innings, but in that situation, we definitely needed him, and it didn't pay off in that situation. But that is my dud of the week. Also, honorable mention, in that same game with our young core players, runners in scoring position, it was I think it was 13 left on when we lost by 3, I believe it was.
Brutal.
Tough situation. They did rebound after that game, but still, it was rough to see in that situation.
It was certainly rough to see in that situation, and I tell you what, they, as good as they've been, they still stranded guys. That just shows you how much talent that we have on this team, that they've had such a great week, and then they can still get better. That's scary, and I think that all the teams in the American League should be scared right now, because if these guys are all firing on the same cylinder at the same time, they might be unbeatable. And I'm not just talking as a Sox fan. I'm just saying as someone that sees how disruptive this team can truly be. And it's got me excited. I'm beyond excited to watch this team every day. And I think that's refreshing for all White Sox fans, because it's must-see TV. It honestly is.
There's a player on the roster that leads the league in runners left in scoring position. And they score a lot. So if I'm talking about Leury Garcia. So if you replace him with Robert, who will not lead the league in runners in scoring position, then sky's the limit for this team. There's no one who can truly say that they're just a lock to beat them when they're at full strength.
Well, and that's a great topic, a great segue, Vinny, because I had a question. Adam, you're probably going to see Adam Engel come back this week, most likely at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Who goes down? Is it Larry Garcia or is it Jake Lamb? Because Lamb's coming on as of late. No, I think this is a real conversation that we have to have, because it's not going to be Billy Hamilton. He's hot right now. I think it's between those two guys. Vinny, who are you choosing to send down?
I would send down Leury in a heartbeat, because he's a better fielder, but Lamb can run into one. And if the fielding is marginally different, then I would take the guy who can run into one, because Leury, he gets these dinky singles when no one's on base, and then he always seems to come up to bat with runners
bases loaded,
bases, like every time. And I just think if Engel can give a little bit more than that, to me, Billy Hamilton's a lock. Like, he's on this team for the year for me.
Yeah.
So, and especially when the rosters expand, so if Robert and Jimenez come back in September, Billy's not going anywhere for me.
Well, we talked about Billy too, as being that speed guy, and it perfectly showed off today in that early game. Starts the extra innings on second, steals third. Jose Abreu hits a sac fly, and he scores.
Yep, no doubt about it. So for me, I know he hit a home run today, and he had a good game today. But other than today, Adam Eaton hasn't been a lot. they're paying him, so he's going to play, but he doesn't necessarily deserve to more than certain people. So I would probably assume Lamb goes just based on their status with the team for the last couple of years, but doesn't make it right.
Gonzo, thoughts?
I like seeing Mendick up in the big league roster with us.
Yeah, me too.
This is a situation I'm going to go with both Garcia and Lamb are going down to make room for Engel. And depending on how they want to use position, the breakdown between position players and pitching staff, with that breakdown, with Kopech coming back, they're going to have to make 2 spots. So I would send Garcia and Lamb down. But also Hans is going to be facing the pressure of Sheets and Berger right now with how hot they've been, and I'm sure he's going to keep them down there for a couple more weeks, give them more at bats. But it's quite the pressure to have, and a good pressure to have in this situation. But those are my 2 guys that I see gone pretty soon here, and we don't know when the trade deadline comes what exactly they're going to do there either. So I don't see those 2 guys, staying with us for long.
Yeah, amen, man. It's going to be interesting to see what Tony does with this team because the chemistry is so good right now. You don't want to mess it up too bad. And I would agree that Lamb is the least senior guy. So I would say for sure he's on the list. Larry Garcia is in that locker room, and he knows the guys. So that's my only concern with that, if it's going to throw off the vibe a little bit. So if I had to pick between the 2, I would say it's going to be Lamb, and then they'll figure somebody else out. But we'll figure that out in the coming weeks. But, gents, let's get into the players that lit it up. Then we'll talk about our picks to click in a segment we like to call Put It on the Board.
Ball hit deep. Way back. He looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes!
That's right, guys. There was quite a few players that tore it up this week because obviously we're on a winning streak. But Vinnie Parisi, who's your player that blew everyone else out of the water this week?
There are a bunch, as you mentioned. Everyone on the pitching staff deserves credit. Giolito was awesome. Really, the only one who kind of had a tough game was Keuchel, and he still manages to win, like he's 4-1. So, yeah. I think I just have to go towards one of my favorite players to watch, and it's Yoan Moncada, because he gets on base. He's kind of like a mix of Abreu and Grandal in terms of his offensive production. Like he figures out ways to hit, and he figures out ways to get on base. He'll walk, he'll hit, he'll home run, he'll do whatever he's got to do. And the only thing that infuriates me is he watches more strike threes go by than any other player, any elite player I've ever seen in my whole life. And if he just somehow in his life learned how to protect the plate a little better, we could be talking about an MVP caliber player, because that's his only flaw.
Yeah, and you talked about getting on base with walks. Yoan Moncada had 6 walks this week, Vinny. I mean, that's impressive. And his number, it's staying pretty consistently between 4 to 6 walks a week. If he can keep that up and then start hitting, which he has the last week, he's going to be super dangerous. And I love what I'm seeing out of Yoan right now. I totally agree with you. Chris Gonzalez, who is your put on the board player of the week, my friend?
This week for me, it's going to be Lance Lynn with both pitching performances he had last week. And I'll get more to him coming up here, but also an honorable mention is also Giolito, because the both of them were pretty solid, this past week with their 2 starts. And especially with Giolito, you like to see him turning it around lately, being our ace. Another honorable mention could be Hendricks too, with this, crazy amount of saves he's had over the weekend.
3 saves in 2 days. Yep.
Which I know Joe, loved. And to what Vinny said with Moncada, he's catching up to Grandal and walks too. So you just love seeing on base percentage with the both of them. So, but yeah, that's it for my put on the Lynn being my put on the board player of the week.
Amen, man. Yeah, I second everything you guys said. The pitching staff, and of course, I got to make sure I mention Jose Abreu. The guy just continues to tear it up. He had 11 RBI last week and 2 homers. He just continues to just be the life force of this offense, and it's just impressive to see. It really is. So, like I said, the Sox were on fire this week, and we had a lot of players to choose from. It's a great problem to have, so I hope we can have this issue every single week that we do this show. But let's talk about our picks to click from last week, guys. Let's see where we stand. Let's take a look at the ticker at the bottom of the screen. So I had Jose Abreu, Zim had Yoan Moncada, Gonzo went with Lance Lynn, and Vinny went with Yermin Mercedes. So, gentlemen, now it comes down to a great debate, and Vinny's going to be our tiebreaker here. So we're going to give our arguments between Gonzo and I. He had Lance Lynn. I had Jose Abreu. I'm going to show you guys the stats here at the bottom. So if you can see there at the bottom of the screen, Jose Abreu went 9 for 24, batting .375 for the week with 11 RBI, 4 runs scored, 2 homers, and 3 walks. And Lance Lynn was equally impressive, pitching 12 innings pitched, 2 wins, 11 strikeouts, and only 1 earned run. It was a crazy impressive week. All I got to say, though, is that Jose Abreu just continues to help this offense move along. So that's my argument as a whole. He's a life force behind this team. 11 RBI in a week is damn impressive. Gonzo, what's your argument?
Yeah, I mean, stats are at the bottom. 12 innings pitched, 2 wins in those 2 starts, 11 Ks, only 1 earned run. Now, I picked Lance Lynn for a reason last week, and to go with what I said earlier in the episode here, coming off that Yankees series when we lost to a division contender in a huge series with New York, the vibes were tough, and I don't even know what they were amongst the players. But when we come back home, we need someone to step on the mound and come up big to revert those vibes, and especially with the series against the Cardinals, division contender in the NL Central, that was huge last Monday, him taking over and with that strong performance and getting the dub, and we just continued that vibes through that series, and that was key difference maker in that series to beat St. Louis, because we lost 1, so we got 2 wins out of that series, and one of them was Lance Lynn. And then going to that Baltimore series for a second start versus Baltimore in a doubleheader, we needed someone to eat up innings, get the win, save the bullpen, and that's exactly what Lance Lynn did in that series. So out of the 7, we went 7-1 last week. 2 of those 7 wins were from Lance Lynn in key moments for that week. So that is why I believe he's the pick to click for the week.
It's a tough argument, and it must be settled by someone. And that someone is Vinny Parisi. Vinny, who is the pick to click between Lance Lynn and Jose Abreu this week?
I think I should be able to vote for Zim and Moncada. That's not fair.
You can vote for Moncada if you want. The only reason I didn't have him in the conversation is because he only had 4 RBI, but he did score 6 runs.
Yeah, totally. I think this is so hard because can we give it honestly? Here's my thought. I would give it a tie, and I'm not trying to dance around the answer, but it's so hard for a pitcher to win pick to click if for a week span because of the fact that they don't play every day. Like Abreu played every day and he was awesome. Lynn played 2 days and was awesome. The strikeout numbers were a little down in the St. Louis one, but he got the job done. I think most of his strikeouts came from the second game or one or the other. I can't remember. Oh man, that's tough.
I do want to mention that I would give it to Joe if he gave me situations where Jose's production got him 3 wins out of that series at least. So that's why I went with those 2 starts and those 2 wins. Because you don't know exactly the production he had, how significant it was towards those wins.
Well, I got 2.
That's why I wanted to see what his argument was for it, but he didn't have an argument for it. So that's why
I have 2 for Abreu that he today, I would say.
But today didn't count. This is for this week.
Yeah, that's tough. There was the one where he hit the home run to put him ahead by 2. I want to say it was against the Orioles. It was a close game, and then Abreu hit one late. And then even yesterday's game, his home run kind of made it where there was untouchable. That's tough.
Adam Shawm in the chat says Abreu leading the league in RBI.
Well, that's
very true.
That's the season. That's not the week.
You guys are going at it for this.
Someone's a little partial there, huh?
I don't want to choose. Gonzo,
Well, how
did you
about-
any chance pitch in high school or something? Are you a pitcher guy?
Yeah.
I figured. It's all about the pitchers.
Well, chat room. If there's people in the chat, if you want to chime in, who had a better week, Abreu or Lance Lynn? Vinny gives us.
Part of me feels like this is David versus Goliath in the picks to click game anyway, and I always tend to side with the Davids in these situations, just because it would be giving Joe his second win, and Gonzo already has 6.
This is my first pick of a pitcher, and it counted huge.
I think I'm just gonna roll with Abreu, and here's why. If I'm still over and I'm involved in a tie in the coming weeks, I'm hoping that I get votes simply because people feel bad for me.
I will take the sympathy vote, Vinny. I do greatly appreciate it. And of course, we all respect Gonzo for picking Lance Lynn.
You both won in my brain.
There you go. You have it. Vinny was the tiebreaker. I will take it any way I can at this point. So let me quickly pull up the updated standings.
I changed my vote. I'm voting for Mercedes.
Okay. Yeah. Of course. We won't talk about his stat line. I mentioned it earlier in the show.
That's 2 in a row I've jinxed really bad.
That's right. So updated scoreboard is below. Gonzo's got 5 wins. Zim is sitting at 2. I'm at 2, and Vinny's at 0. But like I said, Vinny hasn't been here all that long, so he can still catch up. We'll find out what happens on that front. But I'm glad that Gonzo's lead is not even further now. I appreciate that, Vinny. So thank you for that. Gonzo, how does that make you feel?
Very sad, because I had a pretty solid argument there. I'm not going to lie. Not to mention, because I really think Lynn is so, proven himself that we should probably extend him, get those talks done.
I would hope they do that as sooner than later as well.
Not to mention, we all know what the MVP is, but Lance Lynn was a question that when we signed him, we hoped we got that production from his MVP candidates, or the Cy Young candidates the past couple of years. But he's proven to me that if, like I said kind of earlier, if the postseason started now, I'm starting Lance Lynn game 1. That's how confident I am of him right now.
He has been dominant. I can't deny that. And there was a great conversation, great debate, Gonzo. I appreciate it, and I think you had a great argument as well. But let's go on to this week's picks to click, guys. I guess technically, since I won, I am going to go ahead and make my pick first, and I am going to go with Nick Madrigal. He seems to be swinging a hot stick. I feel like he's going to continue that heading into the week. So I'm going to go out on a limb and take Nick Madrigal as mine. And our buddy Zim messaged me his pick to click for the week. He's going to go with Adam Eaton, who hit a 2-run bomb today. Hopefully that can carry over into the week for our buddy Zim, who, by the way, rejoins us again next week after his extended getting used to having a new baby at home. We'll call it that. Zim, we're excited to have you back talking ball with us. So he's going to go with Adam Eaton. Gonzo, who are you going with?
Part of me wants to be bold to take Timmy here, especially with the Detroit series coming up. But I could be pretty cheap and go with Abreu to continue my pick to click. I'm going to be pretty cheap. I'm going to go with Jose Abreu for this week. He's my pick to click.
I like it too.
The MVP, Pito.
All right, Vinny, who's your choice?
I'm going to take the guy I just made an argument for. I'm taking Yohan. He's been playing solid defense at third base. He can hit the ball. He's driving in runs. He's hitting for average, walking. He's the real deal. If he ever stops watching balls go right down the middle of the zone every now and then, he could truly be one of the best players in the league.
I love it, man. So recap, I'm going Nick Madrigal. Gonzo's going with Jose Abreu. Vinny with Yohan Moncada. And Zim is going with Adam Eaton. Gentlemen, we are running a little over. We do have, for everyone listening in the chat room, or everyone watching in the chat or listening, we do have the Friendly Confines coming up directly after us. as soon as we can get off the air here. So we're going to quickly try to wrap up as soon as we can so we can get there for you. Before we do, I'm not going to show it on the screen, but we'll briefly talk about the schedule. I'm just going to read it off essentially coming up. So of course we're heading into June now, and then we're going to get 2 more with the Indians after today, and then we get 4 at home against the Tigers with a much needed off day next Monday. Finally, this team has been on a marathon. Briefly, pitching matchups for next week. Right now we're looking at tomorrow. You're going to have, apparently, according to the White Sox, you have Dylan Cease going against Shane Bieber tomorrow. That's going to be a good one. And then Lance Lynn against Eli Morgan on short rest on Wednesday. The rest of the rotation will be figured out. I'm not quite sure what Tony's going to do, but we're going to find out sooner than later. Gentlemen, real quick, thoughts on those matchups before we give our shout-outs and get out of here?
I guess I'll take it off first. I'm the pitcher at heart, so I love this part of the segment because I can give what's projected. But yeah, 4 games in Cleveland, Monday through Wednesday, 4 games also in Detroit, Thursday through Sunday. And if things are going as projected, I'll give the matchups, but they could interchange depending how the teams are feeling. But at the moment, as we all saw what happened with Rodon and McKenzie for game 1 and game 2, you guys are previously watching Lambert versus Quantrill, which he was in that trade with San Diego for Clevenger. So he was an interesting part of that trade. Game 3 tomorrow looks like Cease and Bieber. Game 4, Lynn versus Morgan. For me, the Cease and Bieber matchup is game of the series, in my opinion.
For sure.
Then going to Detroit, looks like Keuchel and Ricky Mays. Game 2, Gio and Turnbull, another rookie. And then game 3, Rodon and Kubel. Game 4 on Sundays, looking like Cease, and they don't know what's going to be, but it probably would be Boyd. And in that series, I like the matchup with Gio and Turnbull. That's just going to be an interesting pitching matchup for me. But yeah, key players to watch, obviously Cleveland, Jose Ramirez, as we saw tonight. And then for Detroit, Grossman for Detroit is their best player at the moment, surprisingly over Miggy. And Bears fans, it's not Rex Grossman. Just keeping it out there. But yeah, go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, got to win those games against Detroit. If Bieber beats you tomorrow, whatever, try, but take care of your business against Detroit, and we'll see what happens.
Amen. Definitely got to take care of business this upcoming week, gentlemen. And, with that said, it's about time for us to get out of here. Let's do some quick shout-outs so the Friendly Confines can start right after us. Vinny, we'll start with you, man. Any shout-outs before we wrap up?
Yeah, of course. It's always my girlfriend, Hannah. I love you. My mom, dad, brother, everyone who supports me. Make sure you check out Crosstown Crosstalk on Thursday at 2 p.m. And, of course, Bar Down Blackhawk Talk at Wednesday at 2 p.m. Got some big guests. I don't want to hint at any guests, but I think the people that are watching this show will enjoy the one on Thursday for sure.
Going to be awesome. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Thanks, Vinny. Gonzo, quick shout-outs?
Yeah, I'm going to shout out Nate DeLuzak. He's a fellow young umpire of mine. And then he listens to our downloaded podcast on Spotify, and he's been enjoying our episodes that we've been putting out. Thanks, Nate. Also, my girlfriend, she's been a huge support for me, not only for our show and the network, but also the little scare that I had with my health over the weekend. She was with me the whole way through, and I completely love her for that. And also, I'm gonna give a shout out to Aldo for all the hard work he helps us with, and for the network in general.
Amen to that. Appreciate it, guys. And my shout out's always my wife and my dog Maverick. A huge shout out to my buddy Lucas and his beautiful wife Demetra, who got married this weekend. I was at that ceremony. Congratulations, guys. I love you. And then just real quick, I want to tell you guys, our guest next week is Slavko Bekovic from NBC Sports Chicago. That's going to be a dynamite show. Make sure you guys tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But for the South Burbs Hitmen, I'm Joe Mandel. For Chris Gonzalez and Vinny Parisi, We will see you guys next week. Let's get some White Sox wins, and don't forget to tune in to the Friendly Confines starting right after the show. See you guys next week.